So, to get started again, I am Crissy, our director, and I am very excited about this webinar. As Bronwyn said, what we do here is plug in you and your stories for opportunities for advocacy. And while the big one is the Hill Day and legislative advocacy and direct advocacy campaigns, this also includes media opportunities like being able to write an op-ed, being part of writing a letter to the editor, participating in possible news stories, whether it be written publications or even actually on the news, and then also participating in opportunities like this, where wonderful colleagues like Sue come to us who are writing a book jointly with the renowned Dr. Wiggins and ask us for parents. So this is that is why the title, long as it is bringing collaborative voices and strong partnerships together to educate parents on the dangers of today's high potency THC. So I am so excited and happy to welcome both Sue Homola, Dr. Wiggins, and our three parents who participated in the book. Cindy Gresham from Michigan, Patrice Halverson from Montana, and Heather Bacchus from Minnesota. Hey, that's three M's. I didn't even notice. That's pretty funny.
Only the M
So
states.
the way this is going to work is first we're going to talk a little bit with Sue and Ray about how they came together to do this and what that process was like, and then how we came to bring the parents into it and how that went. And then we'll have some time to talk with each of the parents as well. So to start, um, we would just like and again, Sue and Ray, you just take this upon yourselves, conversationally, however you want to do it. But the first question I would ask is that you tell us a little bit about the work you've done prior to the book, and then we'll talk a little bit together about how you came together for the project.
Okay.
So
Dr. Wiggins, you want to start? Oh,
sure. Yeah, I'm happily I'll happily do that, I should say. Uh, First of all, Crissy and Bronwyn, thank you so much for having us. It's such an honor, and to have all these parents here. There is absolutely no group that I would more rather speak to and help than this group. What an awesome group, and what awesome people we have here. And I've had a chance to meet some of these parents, and it's just been such an honor to get to do that. And I'm so happy that they're stepping up and really taking a lead in this fight. What I've done in the past, I'm an oral and maxillofacial surgeon. I'm a physician and a dentist, and I've done about 30,000 general anesthetics. And about 15 years ago, I began noticing that a lot of my patients were very difficult to sedate, and we didn't know why this was happening. And we found that it was happening almost exclusively in marijuana patients, and they were taking 3 to 4 times more propofol to keep them sedated. And so that, along with family issues, I have three cousins that I have absolutely no doubt would be here today, but they're no longer with us, directly related to marijuana. And then another young man who's a very close relative, he wound up in a psychiatric facility, and he was never able to return to college. So although I haven't lost a child due to marijuana, I've had a lot of family issues due to that. And so I started studying this subject from a medical standpoint. And what I found absolutely shocked me. It's absolutely not what you hear in the public square. And so I started this about 4 to 5 years ago and wrote a book called Weeding Out the Myths About Marijuana. And that book did very well and it's helped so many people. And then a couple of years ago, at a SAM event, I was speaking, and afterwards, Sue came up to me and we talked, and she asked if I would like to write a book with her. And I told her, well, let's talk about it. We'll get back together and discuss the nuts and bolts of that. And I found she's just an incredible person, very bright, knows so much about this subject, way more than I do in so many areas. And so we wound up writing this book together, and I think it's just been an amazing journey, and I think it's going to be an amazing book in great part because of the three ladies and others who have helped us out with their stories.
Yes. Yes. Well, I also wanted to, yes, that's Dr. Wiggins's previous book. I also want to thank you, Crissy and Bronwyn, and all the families that are joining us today. We did this for parents, and one of the reasons why we did this is in my background. Right now, I serve as the New Hampshire chairman for Smart Approaches to Marijuana, and prior to that, I was a New Hampshire state rep. And one of the things that really always got to me when I was having these discussions on legalization in the state house is that we talk about tax policy and we talk about all other kind of things with regard to marijuana policy, but we don't talk about public health as much as we should. And we certainly don't talk about the impact to families. And so one of the things went last year, actually, when Dr. Wiggins was at the SAM Good Policy Summit, we had a conversation, but while I'm listening to the family stories that were presented at that summit, one of the things that really touched me and really felt really impactful to me was that while we talk about the tax policy at the state level, that these families are getting left behind. And I just had a fire that we just had to, we had to write something to get it out to families. And I actually just started drafting up the book right there at the conference. I just started thinking, what are 10 things I would tell parents right now about marijuana? And I did at that conference buy Dr. Wiggins's book, and I read it. I started reading it on the plane home, and I was astounded at the level of research. I'm a policy and citation nerd, and I found out he's very well into citations himself. So we really connected with our deep understanding of trying to back up what we're saying with data, because one of the things you learn when you put out any information on marijuana, you're going to immediately attract people that want to argue about it with you. And it's really nice to have those citations in there, because I don't have any issue with anyone having a nice, healthy debate about this topic. And I love giving citations because then somebody can look at the work that I did and the data that I used to research, and then we could use that as a starting point for a conversation. But that's how Dr. Wiggins and I came together. It was really just my, just being very impressed with the work that he did. And I knew that this book would be made even elevated more with his expertise in it. He really does add incredible value to that. So thank you, Dr. Wiggins.
Thank you, Sue.
So thank you so much for that, Sue. And I greatly remember Dr. Wiggins being there, where he was kind enough to share his book with Bronwyn and I. And Dr. Wiggins, can you remind us again and tell us about how there are two versions of that first book, Weeding Out the Myths About Marijuana, and the companion guides?
Absolutely. Really, there's 4 books in that series. There's the standard edition, which is strictly secular, and I made that for public schools, for police departments, other law enforcement agencies, anyone who really just wants the scientific part of it. That book is available. And then I also have an expanded edition, which brings in the spiritual side of things. So there's a lot of biblical references there. It's 3 extra chapters and a lot of extra information that's woven into it. The spiritual side of things is woven into it. And then there are study guides for each of those. There's a study guide for the standard edition and for the expanded edition. And if someone wants to dig deeper into the weeds about this subject, if they want to do like a study at church or with friends or with a local group of youth, whatever, those guides are there to help guide them and help them learn a little bit more than what even the book goes into.
Thank you so much. And again, we highly recommend this book as well. It's easy reading. It's so informative. and just a really great effort, along with so many of the other books out there. This one in particular was really a favorite of mine. And I'm not just saying that because we're here together. It truly is easy reading and so informative. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure. And for those of you who have not seen the emails that went out about the release of The Blunt Truth, we'll talk more about that at the end. But I'm so excited about this book because, as Sue said, making something that's easy to read, incredibly informative, and just the structure of this book and using the parent stories at the beginning of chapters. And matching them up was quite a work in progress in all reality. And I also want to say, I should have said this earlier, but just so that our attendees know, Dr. Sabet wrote the foreword for this book, and I am honored to have been asked to write the foreword for the parent chapter, which is chapter 10. So thank you so much for that honor. I really appreciate it, Sue. As most people know by now, this work is incredibly personal to me and purposeful. And I'm not here for me, I'm here for you. And I do this work for you and I raise your voices. So I was really glad to be able to put that in writing in what I think is going to be a very well received and popular book. So thank you both so much for that honor. I really
Thank you.
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And then, so I'd like to talk a little more. I wonder if this was more you, Sue, or if you actually collaborated together. But when you came to me and told me what you were doing, and then asked for me to provide you with parents, we talked about exactly who was already in it, maybe because, of course, there's so much crossover with various organizations and parent networks that like Johnny's Ambassadors. So we didn't want to overlap. And so we have such a big list. So that I had to put some thought into that as well. But once I sent you those parents, can you talk a little bit about how you reached out and what that process was like once you had the group you knew were going to participate in this book?
Yeah. Well, the parent stories are the heart of the book because we know, Dr. Wiggins and I both know that parents speaking directly to parents are what's going to resonate to people. And that is at the heart of what PAN does. And that's why I knew that the first phone call that I needed to make was to you to try to connect with parents because what you guys have done through PAN is so effective and it really reaches in and makes people sit up and listen. And so I was incredibly grateful to have the parents that wanted to join in on this book. And so the process that I took was that obviously you helped me connect with some of the names. Just through the initial conversations I've had with them, I tried to schedule an initial meeting where we just talked on the phone and I just wanted to hear their story. I just wanted to hear what they experienced, what they're still experiencing. Um, One thing in particular, after every phone call, it just what they've gone through in some regards. The credit I give to the parents is that they're sharing with me some of the most difficult times in their life. And I honor that. I really try to honor that and respect that. And even now, when I read the book, like we're reading proofs right now, I've read this book 1,000 times because you're copy editing all the time. Every time I read one of the parent stories, it still hits me like a brick. And in one of the phone calls in particular, just how the book is structured, we have a parent story, a family story between every chapter. And there's one story at the end. And Cindy's on the call here, but when I had that phone call with Cindy, there was just something in me that said, Haley, her daughter has to have the last word. I just felt it. I got goosebumps. I get goosebumps every time I think about it, but there was something about hearing Haley's story that I just feel like she needed to have the final say in the book. And so I just really am grateful to every family. And I'm particularly also grateful to Cindy for sharing that very personal story. I know it was very difficult. And that's really it. I just know that how important the family's stories are. And that's really what comes through in the book. So
And so, did you have the parents send you in writing, or did you literally take notes as they recalled their story to you?
So I wanted it in their words. So what I would do is I would have them tell me their story. And then and there's things within the story that I would hear and go, oh, okay, because I knew how the book was going to be structured. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting point of that. Um, I try to give them some parameters and ask them to write up how they would like it uh, said. And then they sent me some information. Sometimes it was really difficult for parents. There was one or two families that they had a real difficult time putting it on paper, and I think it was because the story was so big for them, understandably, because how can you distill the most important thing of your life into a page, right? It's so difficult. So in some of those cases I said, well, let me write up some notes for you and let me give it to you, let me give you an outline and see if this will work for you, and then you add to that, you do it based off of what they've told me, because sometimes it is, it's so difficult to distill everything you want to say into a very succinct space. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And again, in the end, we have this beautiful product, which is soon to be released, and we'll talk about that a little more later. So I think, unless there's anything else you would like to add, Sue or Dr. Wiggins, we will move on to the parents.
please.
And I think I'm going to do this alphabetically. We're all M's, but we're going to start with Cindy. Cindy Gresham is from Michigan. I believe some of her family members might be on the webinar as well with us. And Cindy came to Pan, I'd say, well, actually, she had listened to my very first Fortitude podcast episode, which was with Heather and Randy Bacchus. And she found us through that webinar, which I was so thankful that she did. And I remember when she called me and when we spoke on the phone, and somewhat like Sue feels, how heartbroken I was to hear this story, and but of course embraced the empowerment of Cindy in what she had created with Haley, and we immediately connected. It was just so natural, and I felt such a profound urgency to get her story out there and get her involved with us. So Cindy did Fortitude podcast. It was definitely season one. It was either episode 5 or 6. And proceeded to get involved with Pan. She wrote a feature for us and in our newsletter, and she is advocated readily. And obviously, when Sue came to me, I definitely wanted Cindy to have this opportunity, And again, I recommended a group of parents, and some may not have been ready. And some may have been ready, but that was their call. So again,
Mm.
I want to emphasize with Pan, there is nothing we will ever force you to do. And everything we ever recommend will have been highly vetted by us as a legitimate opportunity, and we will never lead you into it blind. We will always provide you with support and resources and um, just guidance to do anything that we are recommending that you do. So, Cindy, I'll turn it over to you. And, please tell us a little bit about your process and where you're at now, and a little bit of Haley's story and how you got involved with this.
Great, thank you. Yeah, when I first talked to Crissy, I think we were on the phone. We were in a virtual meeting for like, well, it was over 2 hours. I feel like it was a really long time, but I'm just so fortunate that I found the Parent Action Network. It's just, they've been such a great resource. Crissy is, I reach out anything that I'm not sure of. If I'm building my presentation, she's always willing to help, and it's been wonderful. And I'm just so honored to be a part of this project. And when I talked to Sue, like same thing. I think we were on the phone for an hour and we just kind of meshed as well. And I just felt like I just really felt like this was a calling, or this was meant to be. I felt like Haley was supposed to have this voice and be in this book. But just to tell you a little bit about Haley, she was 15 when she died by suicide. And it was shocking because she didn't fit in any of the typical things that you think when signs for suicide. And she was very happy all of the time. And so it took a long time to piece together what happened. We did find out about 5 weeks prior that she was vaping marijuana. And probably like so many parents, I was like, thank God it's just weed. Like, we can work with this. Everybody did it back in my day, so thank God it's just weed. This is a teaching moment and it wasn't like something stronger. And I just had no idea. So that was a pivotal point. And when I asked her why she was doing it, or why she started, she said, because all my friends told me it would help with anxiety. These kids have so much anxiety these days. And so that's why she was doing that. And I, it was kind of a crossroads, but because I did not know and wasn't educated on at all, the dangers of today's high potency products, I chose to focus on the anxiety. In my mind, if I could take care of the anxiety, that took care of the need for marijuana. And I couldn't have been more wrong. So we ended up finding a note that she wrote to us, a goodbye note. And in it, she said, I think I used to be a good person, but I turned myself into a drug addict. And I don't care what anybody says. I think she called it weed. Weed is addictive and I can't stop, or something along those lines. And that was when we were like, wait, what? Like, drug addict from marijuana? Like, that was in her goodbye note. So it was a huge clue. And later on, we found a journal that she had hidden. And she was really struggling with quitting because we had done the worst thing that you could do. We grounded her, because the reason I found out about the marijuana is because she got in trouble and I went through her phone. So we had grounded her, but now she was cold turkey off of it. And, if you know anything about the withdrawal, and, you don't think marijuana is addictive, but it is. And so it created depression, and it was just kind of the perfect storm. And so that's kind of how we started down the road of, why is this about marijuana? We started researching, and we were just shocked. I think, same with Dr. Wiggins, what he said, just shocked when you start learning all of these things about it. You just had no idea. And I guess with a lot of us, we try to find, purpose in the pain. And so I wanted to educate other parents, and I didn't know how to do that. So the first thing I did was I put Haley's story in Facebook. I wrote it, and then it took me 8 months to have the courage to post it. I'm very private. I used to be a very private person. I didn't put my personal things out there. And it was shared like 600 and something times. And I had all these people calling me. And one of them was the coalition, one of our coalitions here. And they wanted me to do a webinar. So that's sort of how I started stepping into this. And then I wanted to directly help our youth. I didn't know how or what. And then we have this local project at our schools, or this program rather, at our high school called Real Talk. And basically what it is it's a voluntary thing. Kids can sign up for the day. It's during the school day, but it starts out with some fun in the morning and games and different things. And then you break off into groups of 10, and then you have facilitators. So I volunteered to be a facilitator. And as a facilitator, you're trying to get kids the group to kind of come together, but you're trying to get them to open up and support each other. And we have like different tools that we use. One is plates, and each plate has a saying on it, and it gets really heavy. Some really heavy stuff comes out about divorce and families and, drugs and just all of these things. And then the main part of it is called Walk the Line, where you go into a gym and you stand on one side and they read 106 statements. And if it applies to you, you go out and then you turn back to where you're facing. And it starts out with like, somebody's hurt my feelings, but then it's like, I've been, sexually abused. I have parents in jail. It just goes in, and then it's silent, and everybody, you just see the tears going down with these kids. So it's a very emotional day. And I thought, all right, this is kind of like Breakfast Club though. Like, okay, they just unearthed all of this and now they just go back to school. Now what? So I started thinking like, wouldn't it be cool if I could do like a monthly program? And I'm like, maybe I could call it After Talk. It's the talk that happens after real talk. But then it was kind of like, how am I going to fund that? I need to bring food in and do all that. How would I do that? And so I started being pulled to start a foundation. And I didn't want to do that because that was not in my life plan. That was big and scary, and I knew nothing about a foundation. But it just kept nagging and nagging at me, and finally, I just sort of jumped in and did that. And I pitched After Talk to the school, and so we started that program. And then it's like a monthly program, and we do more like social and fun things, but we also talk about topics, and it's a place where they support each other. But we don't I don't want it to make a counseling session, so we don't get too much into all of it. But the one thing that I noticed, we never tell them they can't have their phones out, but they don't. They may check it, but those phones stay on tables and they are playing games. They have a game room and they're playing games and engaging with each other. So it's been great. And then I pitched it to Haley's junior high. And now, starting in the fall, we're actually going to be an official club in the school, and we're actually going to be in the school. So that was how I wanted to help kids. So Haley's Helpers, the foundation I created, we do education. So we educate parents and students on the dangers of high potency products, and then eventually I want to do a camp. But I think it's just so important that we reach these kids and work on their mental health so they don't feel like they have to turn to these substances, because I hear over and over and over it helps my anxiety. They think there's this big misconception, obviously marketing about marijuana helps mental health illnesses when actually it doesn't. And it can cause them or make them worse. So that was kind of my journey on how I ended up with my foundation and what I'm trying to do. Um, and then, you know, this book opportunity came about, and it was just amazing. And it was not easy to write. It was not easy to sit and read it over and over. And, when you're writing and then you're reading it over and over, and you're living it over and over and over. But I just really believe in this book. And I think it's so important that parents read it and understand all of the dangers, and knowledge is power. So I'm very, very excited for this book to come out. I'm very excited to be a part of it. And everybody was so wonderful to work with. Sue, you're amazing. And just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy, for sharing all of that. We're going to move on to Heather from Minnesota. And many of you know Heather and Randy's story, but that doesn't make it any less profound or important. And so, again, Heather came to me about, actually, phone call from Heather. She came to me about 3 years ago, like very soon after I had just started here at SAM, and told me what had happened. And she was part of SAM Minnesota, and that she was thinking about starting a foundation. They were working on it, and they wanted some information from Smart Approaches to Marijuana. So I quickly connected her with Luke and Kevin at that point, because again, I was still learning a lot about where we were going with Pan and what we were going to become. And that relationship just built and built and built. And Heather and Randy were our first Fortitude episode. And then they continued to do a lot of advocacy with us. And I will let Heather tell you about a couple of those things, like Randy's resolution. And then, of course, ultimately, Heather also involved me in her book's process, which I so greatly appreciated. She wrote A Higher Love. I don't know if you have a copy with you. But again, I was part of this process, a little more behind the scenes, in having the opportunity to edit that and read it through as she was writing it. And I believe Luke wrote the foreword for your book, right? Yeah. And again, when this opportunity came up, I certainly wanted Heather involved with Sue and Ray's book. So I will turn it over to you, Heather.
Great. Thank you, Crissy, for having me. And I guess I'll just start by saying, we lost our son in July of 2021. And when we lost him, he died by suicide. And we knew he had been struggling with addiction, but we had no idea that the marijuana that he was using was just damaging his brain. And so once he passed, I connected and I found Laura Stack's story in the People magazine. And then I started just digging in deep. And I was learning everything I possibly could. And I felt this calling to have to share what had happened. And thankfully, we were blessed in that our son left us so many, videos, journals, and writings that we had of a full detail and picture. Once we got into his phone and computer, we really could put all of the pieces together about what was happening with him. And then everything started to click between the science and his story that he had self-documented, because in his delusion, he thought he was going to become a famous rap artist. So he was taking video because he thought one day when he was famous that he'd be sharing his story that way. And so once we got all of these pieces, we joined SAM Minnesota because Minnesota was going to legalize marijuana, and I wanted to do everything I possibly could to stop that from happening. And we did not make that happen, unfortunately, but we all know that it's a very strong force to go against. But the beauty of it was we connected with Sam, we connected with Pan, and that really did give us strength. And we decided in our journey, we could either become bitter or we could become better. And Sam and Pan have been part of our process of becoming better. So once we started working with Sam and Pan and we got all the information, then I was writing my son's story because I didn't want to forget him and I didn't want to forget what happened in our journey. But then I saw all the science and I thought, we really have to put the science in the story as well. So my book I put together is our son's story, the science, and little you need to know sections interspersed throughout, and then hindsight, because as parents, when you're in the middle of this, in the middle of addiction, you really are at a loss for resources, what to do, where to go. It's lonely. And so I really just wanted it as like, if I would have known, I would have done this differently. And there are so many things that we would have done differently now, knowing what we know today, but we can't go back. And so we put that story together and we now work to educate kids about the dangers of marijuana. We'll talk to parents too. It's harder to get the parents in the room, but the beauty of it is we show a video of our son and the kids really resonate with the video because they see him talking in his own words, and you see a very big decline in who he was to who he became at his end, unfortunately. And so the kids will come up after the video, after we've shown them and we've talked about the science and everything, and they say, you know what, you can tell me every statistic, but really that video just shows me, and it touches their hearts, which is exactly what we want it to do. So we feel very blessed that we've had the opportunity to connect with Pan and Sam and to be able to have the knowledge that they have to be able to share them, because we are just parents with lived experience, but then we can take that information. And I read Dr. Wiggins' first book. I think it was when we were out in at the Smart Approaches to Marijuana 2 years ago, I believe, is when it was there. And that was also the year, Crissy, that we were there for Randy's resolution, right? Yep. And so we were there because Sam supported us by creating Randy's resolution. It was presented to our cheerleaders, Pete Sessions and Pete Ricketts, and they were the ones who were trying to get that moving forward. Maybe it will come back, but it was really to educate, do more research and education about today's high potency THC products. So once I read Dr. Wiggins' book, again, it's a really great read. And even I was able to read the manuscript for what they've put together now between Sue and Dr. Wiggins. And it's great. And my hope is to hand it to my kids who said they're going to start managing our social media and have them use it as a template for creating facts to put out on social media because it's got so much great information. And the personal stories, really, again, it's about backing up that personal story with the science. So I was very blessed to be able to participate in that. And thank you guys for letting me do that. And I will say, Sue was very encouraging. She also was very patient because sometimes she had to send gentle reminders, but she did so in a really kind manner and again supported us through it. And as many of you know, when you have this story, the story is long and it's so many ins and outs and ups and downs. To be able to condense that into something, Sue was always, she was very patient too, to help us get to that point and to help us whittle it down and give us the encouragement to do so. So thank you for including Randy's story in your book. And Crissy, thank you for the opportunity to talk about my book and about our foundation, Be Extraordinary, Be You. And like Cindy said, our son started using because of anxiety. And our encouragement to the kids is really to seek the mental health help that they need rather than taking a substance which will create short-term relief, but also long-term damage. And so just really getting that message across. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Heather. And I also want to mention that Heather, Randy, and Randy Jr. are prominently featured in the new documentary THC Inc., co-executive produced by Kevin Sabet, our CEO, and Steve Sarowitz. He is actually a Hollywood producer who experienced this with his own son as well. And Kevin and Steve came together about 5 years ago to create this documentary that was finally just released. So I will give a reminder at the end of this webinar, just how you could all see that and consider a screening in your communities. So thank you so much, Heather, for sharing your experience. And we are now going to move on to Patrice Halverson. Patrice is from Montana. She's one of two very strong mom advocates in Montana. And I see that the other is here as well. But Patrice came to us actually probably a little over a year ago. And I think she was actually signed up with Sam and doing some advocacy and reading about Sam, but ultimately ended up having a conversation with me through Pan, and she has become a fierce advocate as well. I love Patrice because she was very shy and voiced to me that she was shy about advocating, but came to the Hill with us nonetheless. I coaxed her into that, and she came with her partner. And I am so very glad that she came because we had such a large group this year. And, we always talk about, besides the Hill Day experience, just the parents actually getting to know each other in person from across the country is so powerful in itself. And I'm so glad that that was such a valuable opportunity for Patrice as well. And again, Patrice did participate in this book, so I was really excited about having her join us on this webinar. And again, her story is one of hope, but I will turn it over to Patrice to tell us a little about her journey.
Okay, thank you, Crissy, and everyone for having me. I am really grateful to this organization because, as you all know, you feel kind of alone when you're going through this. And I guess what I'm going to talk about mostly is my experience on Hill Day. Is that correct, Crissy?
You can talk about whatever you want, Patrice. Definitely a little bit of your story.
Sure.
Definitely your journey with this book, and a little bit about the experience of Hill Day, because I know it was so powerful for you.
Okay. So, I will give my background kind of in a nutshell. My son Jordan started using marijuana probably about 14 years ago. And like all of the other stories, he was like just your average kid. He was doing great in school and sports and everything. And he just went downhill from there. And I didn't know who to reach out to or who to talk to. And I was in shock. And I didn't know what was happening. And long story short, I reached out a long time ago to Sam and some different groups. And I reconnected again recently about a year ago when he had another episode and ended up in jail. And I needed that support again. And so, as ours is a story of hope right now, as you all know, it's like a day-to-day thing. You never know. And you're just praying that everything keeps going and the shoe doesn't drop. And so right now I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that he's in a good place. He has been diagnosed with bipolar and schizoaffective disorder, which is often the case after they have these psychotic breakdowns from THC. He's not using. His last one he did use about a year ago, and that's when he had his last episode. But I want to focus a little bit on just going to Washington, D.C. and Hill Day, and because that was hopeful and that was positive, and you don't get a lot of moments like that when you're going through this. And just to meet all the other parents and my partner, Jody, he heard all the other stories and he's like, wow, it's like all of these stories are so similar. This is not a coincidence. And I'm like, no, it's not. There's something here. And sometimes you feel like you're going crazy because you don't hear this viewpoint very often on the news and what they report about marijuana or THC, but we all know the stories and we know what we're seeing and what we're witnessing. And so that's why it's so important that we continue to advocate. And I'm so happy to be part of this book because I'm so happy to see the science behind this and the stories, because I think we just have to keep plugging away and getting our viewpoint out there, and that this is real. This is not just marijuana and not a big deal. And I guess I don't know how to emphasize that enough because there's just so many of us who have had so many similar stories, and it's not a club any of us want to belong to because it is so difficult and so life altering for your family. And our family has been shaken up pretty good by this. But I am hopeful. I am hopeful that we will get the word out. And as far as Hill Day, I'll get back on point here. We went to Hill Day and it was just so empowering to be able to sit down with these senators and their staff and tell our story and to really be heard, and hopeful that steps are being taken and hopefully we can make some changes going forward. And maybe it's too late for some of these kids. Maybe my kid, well, he's a grown man now. He's 30 years old and he's on disability and he's not working and his brain has been, damaged by this. But hopeful that we can reach the next generation because we need to stop this, because it's not healthy. It's not good for the next generation because there's so much each of these kids could have contributed to society. They all started out with such bright futures, and I think we need to stand up to big tobacco and say, no, we're not going down this road again, and I guess I'm just grateful again for this group. It's a day-to-day thing. We keep having to advocate for this because for every post we put up, you'll get 10 negative posts back. And I just expect that now, but I'm thankful that you've written this book, and I'm thankful to be a part of it. And I guess that's pretty much my story. Did you have anything else I should
So
mention,
I'm
Chrissy?
just wondering, Patrice, because your story is started the longest ago. 15 years you've been going through this.
Mhm.
So as Sue mentioned, sometimes it's very hard to retell these stories and remember everything and not get worked up about it. So can you tell us a little bit about how that process was for you?
Yeah. At first, I was all like, oh, yeah, I want to be part of the book. And then it got down to the part, okay, write your story. And then I'm like, where do I start? Because it's like 14 years of story. And there are good times and there are bad times. And then there's good times. And it's just this roller coaster of pain and upheaval and then hope and then pain and it's just so hard to condense that. And at some point, I think I needed a little gentle nudge too. And I was like, can you help me with this? Because I don't want to go into such detail, but yet I don't know what's important to hear because 14 years is a long time. And it's a lot of missed opportunities. It's a lot of heartbreak. It's a lot of strife within your family. It's a lot of, oh, I had this dream and now it's not going to take place. And then this dream and then this dream. And a lot of readjustment as a parent and learning how to focus on what's important and what to let go and just how to be there for them. And I think I'm grateful that you helped me narrow that down because I couldn't have put this into one page because it was such a large chapter in our lives and still continues to be. And I feel a little bit numb to it because it's been going on for so long. And there's times when you get very emotional about it, and other times you just cope and you're just kind of going through the day-to-day motions, I guess. Um, my heart breaks for anyone who's lost a child. I always pray that's not where I'm going to end up. And so, by the grace of God, I just pray for everyone who has lost a child, and may He continue to comfort each of us in our walk as we go through this. And I like to write poetry, as you know, and so that's kind of how I guess it was 2020 that I was going through a big ordeal with Jordan. And so I wrote a poem about it, and that kind of encapsulates everything that I've been feeling over these last, I don't know, 14 or so years. And so I know you were going to ask me to read that at some point, and I don't know if this is the time or not.
If you're open to sharing it, we would love you to do that.
Sure, I'll share it. So it's called A Mother's Prayer. A shell of what you once were, I can't see you anymore. The boy who used to make me laugh has left and shut the door. I don't know how to reach you, to guide you through this pain. The boy who used to warm my heart stopped reaching out in vain. We share this space together, interact as if all is just okay. But the boy who used to love me is not the man I see today. The air is always heavy, and the mood is rarely light. The boy I used to love so much has left me in the night. I hope one day to waken and to find you back once more. The boy that had his spirit, please come knocking at my door. I ask for God to guide me and give me patience for this day, that the boy who used to love life will find you, God, I pray. I don't know when it happened, when your spirit slipped away, but the boy that used to call me mom simply passes through the day. I sometimes catch a twinkle or a glimpse within his eyes from the boy trapped in the darkness, saying, "Help me, Mom," and sighs. So I go through the motions and I function as I must, for the boy that I once knew will come back to me, I trust. A mother is only as happy as her most troubled child, so her son, so full of agony, slowly kills her deep inside. For when you become a parent, you give your heart and soul away to the boy that used to fill my heart. Come back to me, I pray. Thanks.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, I don't even know how to go on at this point. It's truly beautiful, and I'm so honored that you shared that with all of us. Thank you so much, Patrice.
Thank you. Thank you.
So before we continue, I almost feel like we need a moment of silence. I think that was difficult for everyone, and so beautifully written. I love writing poetry myself, but that was profoundly beautiful. Thank you really for sharing that with us and getting through it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Before we move on, we do have a couple of other parents that were featured in the book attending the webinar. So I'd like to give them a quick opportunity to say hello if they'd like and thank you. And it does seem like we have a moment. So if you're willing, Alejandra and Kelly, we'll start with Alejandra. If you want to say a few words, please put your unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you for having me.
Hi,
Well, I
Alejandra.
was honored to talk to Sue. Still very raw, 2 years, and it's hard to speak still. But I appreciate the opportunity, and it was a good exercise, definitely, to write it and to tell my son's story. At the beginning, I was kind of offended, if I'm honest. I was like, why, how is my son's story going to be told in a page? And Sue was very gentle. I appreciate her kindness. And she's like, this could be an opportunity for you to write your own book. And I'm like, I'm not a writer. I'm not a writer, but these stories are meant to be told. You know, our kids, they mean a lot, and they didn't die for nothing. We need to share their stories. We need to continue to speak up. We need to help other parents that are having the opportunity to do something for their kids that are in in time to help them. And for other generations, like other people are saying, we owe it to our kids in the future to tell our stories. And you know, as far as it is, we need to have the courage to speak in front of people and tell our stories, because they matter. And we want our kids, we want to have hopefully other generations affected by this. And at times when I'm reading your emails and when I go to watch my news, you feel defeated. You're like, this is a war that is not going to ever win. We're not gonna win against the big profit companies that are selling these products. You feel defeated at times, but you know, education matters, and you know, it's like alcohol. There's so many people that are using alcohol and they're having problems, but it is culture. So we need to change the culture on how people view this consumption substances. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. I'm so glad you participated in this project because I do remember speaking to you about your concerns in the beginning. I'm really glad you got through it, and I know you got through that because of how gentle Sue is. So
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank
Kelly,
you.
are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you so much, Sue, for allowing me to share our story in the book as well.
Thank you.
And Crissy, as always, for, supporting us and our family through all of this. And to all of you ladies that have spoken tonight, my prayers are definitely with you. Like many of you, it was very, very hard to put everything into one page. And with our story, it is currently still ongoing. So there are new things that come up all the time. But I think the most important thing that needs to be said with our story is that our son was not an addict to THC or marijuana. He tried this one time, which sent him into an immediate or life-threatening medical emergency. It affected his heart immediately. It affected his heart being the main thing, his blood pressure, and his brain within 5 minutes of trying it for the first time. By the grace of God, he knew something was wrong and he was able to call 911. He was with a friend and the friend called me. So with that being said, he was rushed to the hospital with the paramedics telling us, tell him to hang on. There's a chance he may not make it. His heart was at 200 beats a minute. His blood pressure was absolutely through the roof. And they had to work on him to keep him alive. They got our cell phone number and they told us because he had just turned 18, this was in the summer of 2021, June of 2021, right before his senior year of high school. And they told us to keep our cell phones on us as we followed the ambulance because there was a chance or a likelihood that he would not make it to the hospital alive. He did make it, praise God. They had to work on him. When he was released and he was stabilized, the hospital at that time, this is why this is so important, was so uneducated on the effects of what it did to his brain. When we took our son home, he was still very much hallucinating. He was talking out of his mind. Nothing was making sense. He still seemed very much in an emergent situation. And we just kept saying, do we turn around and take him back? What do we do? And we got him home. It'll be 5 years in June. And he has been unable to leave our home since, physically leave our home. He has not left our cul-de-sac, cannot leave our driveway due to everything that it did to his brain. And his brain has taken a very long time to heal. And where we are at now, he is in an intensive outpatient therapy program. It's called an IOP. He does virtually. There's so much to the story, but that's where we are. The reason he cannot leave our home is due to the fears and the phobias. He does have a form of Tourette's due to the trauma that this caused his brain. So again, once he was stabilized, they just released him and said, okay, well, he was basically just really high, go home and sleep it off. That's what they told us. And he came home, he slept for about 24 hours, and he woke up a totally different child, a different person, a different friend. Just he has not been the same since. And that's why I say, every single story is so important. Every single one. And like I said, it only takes that one time, and a lot of people don't realize how potent these products are, that it can literally take the one time to take your life or to change your life. And so that is the voice that I try to raise. In the book, I am under a different name because he is aware of what has happened to him. He is currently, you know, aware of his situation. He can somewhat tell a story when he doesn't get too emotional. The reason he can't leave our home, I'm backing up, is he has severe agoraphobia of the world around him. He is terrified of the world around him. Anything he eats, if he tries to take a ibuprofen, anything he thinks is going to kill him due to this one-time experience. If he drinks a drink, everything he has to be like talked to and coaxed through so that he can be okay to do these things because of this one experience. And so, again, with all of that being said, I was going somewhere else with that, but that's okay. I lost it. But I guess I was just getting to the point of my name is different in the book because right now he knows I'm doing the advocacy work. He knows that I talk to other parents. He knows that I do all these things. However, we still have to protect his privacy on where he is in his journey. And, we have a community around us, people that kind of a small town, and people, he just walked in the room to get something. So people, like to spread rumors and say things that aren't true. And so for those reasons, until he is ready to fully tell his story, we have to take it little bits at a time and little parts at a time. And, my plan, the end goal, if he is ever ready and when he's ready, is to absolutely be out there with a stronger and larger voice. And hopefully he will be, by my side doing that as he continues to heal. But I want to thank you, everybody who has given us a voice. And, at the beginning of this, like all other parents, and we were just as lost and doing the same. I was just like, we can't be the only family that has been through this. There's no way, it seems so surreal. Everything was very surreal, and it seemed like we were living this, in another world. It was just wild. And then as I started doing a little bit of research is when I came upon Crissy, and it was just like, what? I just, happened to hear, I think she was being interviewed, or she may remember exactly what that was. I want to say it was 2 or 3 years ago now, Crissy. I can't remember. But no, you're good. It was just like, it took my breath away. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I couldn't believe that this was happening, and we weren't the only ones. And that's also why this is so extremely important, because we aren't the only ones. And there are probably thousands of other parents out there who think that they are. So, but that is pretty much, our story in a nutshell, in a small nutshell, as, it continues. And each day is also very different, very unpredictable. And we get through it moment by moment. You can't really make plans. You can't, it is moment by moment. So, but there's hope. There's always hope. So, thank you guys. Sorry if you hear my dog.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thanks for
Thank
making
you.
the time to be here. I know there's a lot going
Absolutely.
on. So
Yeah,
I
literally
appreciate
just
you.
kind of off subject, but literally slid in here by the seat of my pants because my daughter was at the hospital. So
Oh, no.
she's okay. She's
Okay.
she's okay. She's had to get flu. She's about to have baby number 2. So I wasn't even sure I was gonna make it. So I'm so grateful. See, these are the things that I think God has a hand in. He was like, you know what? We're gonna get her fixed up and we're gonna get Kelly there. She may be in her sweatshirt and the clothes at the hospital, but there are those moments that God still speaks to all of us and makes things happen, like me being able to be in here and each one of you ladies being able to tell your stories. And I say all that to say those are the moments that give me hope. Those are the moments that, open my eyes and say, we hear I'm listening to you, we hear your prayers. So
Thank you
yeah,
so much, Kelly. We
thank you.
understand if you have to go.
No, it's okay.
But
Thank you.
thank you so
Yeah,
much for saying a few words. I
absolutely. I probably said way more than I was planning on, but
It's fine.
Crissy, could I jump in for a second?
Yes, absolutely. I was
One
just
of
going
the
to turn it over to you guys again.
Oh, no, I was just going to say one of the things that was a common theme and that I hear from other parents too is that they actually are looking for help and they're not finding help. And I hope that there's more education that's happening in the medical community. But a lot of times, parents will go to the medical community, to counselors, to therapists, to, hospital staff, and they're like, well, it's just weed. And it's just really shocking, the level of misinformation. And I think that that may be shifting because hospitals are seeing this more. They're seeing more of the effects of it. But a lot of times parents are doing what they can. That was, they try to get the help and nobody is really taking them seriously. So
Hmm.
that's an added frustration for parents for sure.
Absolutely, and again, they're trying to pare their story down, but of course, we know this in the longer versions. And I want to mention very quickly again that I do the Fortitude podcast, and it's another opportunity to get stories out there. And for any attendee who hasn't seen the Fortitude podcast, you can hear all 3 of these ladies on the panel's stories in full. Again, Heather and Randy are season 1, episode 1. Cindy was season 1, episode 6, and Patrice is season 3, episode 5. But there's over 30 episodes and counting because I have tons lined up and I try to get one out at least every other week because to me, and I think that's what's important about this book also, is that while Kelly mentioned that she used a pseudonym, what's almost more important is the state, right? We're showing that this is happening all over the country. And you don't have to give your real name to tell your story. You don't have to divulge your child's name to tell your story. And so that's a very important thing for all of you to understand who aren't advocating yet and are still conflicted about whether you should or not. We have so many opportunities here, just like being in this book, where you can still tell your story and protect your loved ones. So thank you, Kelly, for making those points so that I could say that again. Um, and again, I think this book is just going to be it's so filled with succinct, easy to understand information for the average person who is flabbergasted by what they're going through and doesn't understand. And then also to pass it on to others that continue to argue with you that it's just pot. So again, thank you ladies for agreeing to be on this webinar. Thank you, Sue and Ray, and I want to turn it back over to you to discuss the release date and also give you the opportunity if there's anything else you want to say before discussing the release date and how we can get this book.
Well, I just want to say that this has been literally one of the most impactful nights I have ever had in my life. These stories are absolutely amazing. They tug at your heart, but they tell the truth about marijuana. I can give all the science all day long, and I do that. I talk about the science all the time, but these stories are so impactful. So I cannot stress enough to the parents here who haven't agreed to come out about this or talk about their story. You can help so many people with these stories, and that's why I can't wait for this book to come out. There's some stories in my other book as well. Those are some of the most impactful parts of that book, and that's going to be the most impactful part of this book. Again, the science is in there, and that's needed, but these stories are just so impactful, and I can't thank you ladies enough for sharing. It's just been amazing. Regarding the release date, our book is coming out on August the 4th, but it's available now. If you go to barnesandnoble.com, you can pre-order it. And when you pre-order it, the more people that pre-order it, the more stores it will be in. It's super important. If you will do that, that will help so much, and that will get the word out to so many more people so that when they go into a store, they can actually look at it there on the shelf. So again, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for sharing your stories. And I hope that you'll buy the book, The Blunt Truth, by Sue Homola and Raymond Wiggins. Sue?
I just wanted to piggyback on that. So this is the first book I've written and had published. And so I'm learning a lot. And one of the things I learned is about 300 is the magic number. That's been kind of communicated to Dr. Wiggins and I. So, if we can do 300 pre-sales, then that through Barnes and Noble, then that gives them the metrics they need to be able to stock it on their shelves. But, I just want to encourage parents that everybody has a story to tell. And, regardless of what we have in the book, every day there's an opportunity to share that information that you have with somebody who is a friend of yours, somebody who's a medical professional, somebody who's a teacher. One of the things I'd like to see parents really start asking their teachers, their school teachers, are, what are you seeing in the classroom? Because researching this book, it was shocking, some of the instances that are happening around the US right now. And so, just kind of talking to people in your everyday life. I'm so grateful to you. And I hope that you use this as an opportunity to keep talking to people about it and kind of picking their brain. If you know somebody who works in the ER, what are they seeing? Law enforcement, you'll get all kinds of great information. And I just think that it's those community conversations where you start building up those conversations with people, and then you can share something as a parent. I just think it's just foundational. So, and again, PAN, this is what PAN does. Parent to parent conversations are so effective. So I can't say thank you enough to PAN and to obviously the families who are here tonight. So.
Thank you so much, Sue and Ray. Thank you so much for writing this book. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for the kind words about the work that PAN is doing. We appreciate you both so very much. Again, thank you to everyone for all you're doing. Thank you for being a part of PAN. Thank you for joining this webinar. And again, thank you, Ray, Sue, Cindy, Heather, and Patrice for being here.
Yes.